My early morning drive from Naples, Florida to the West Palm Beach Botanic Garden got off to a very auspicious start. The fog enveloped the Everglades, a rare occurrence in these parts. Ghostly silhouettes of the trees emerged and disappeared in thick fog as I drove. The atmosphere was surreal. I pulled over the rest stop along Highway 75, crossing Florida east to west. Mist over the Everglades made scenery absolutely magical. I walked around, not wanting to leave, taking in the nature and the stillness of the place. I watched the water lettuce slowly drift with the gentle current. A bird would pop out of nowhere, disturbing the stillness of the moment. As I walked along the water's edge, my footsteps disturbed the catfish hiding under the rocks. I stood mesmerized by being so close to the nature. There were birds everywhere, some familiar, seeing others for the first time. And as I was getting closer to get a better shot, there it was, completely unexpected, a gift from Mother Nature. It is hard to describe the majesty of this moment. There are 200,000 alligators in the Everglades, but this was my first, and this memory will stay with me forever. I stayed for as long as I could, not believing my good fortune, but I had to go. I had a 2-hour drive ahead of me, and so I headed east towards Miami. I parked in front of the entry plaza directly across the street from the Miami Beach Convention Center. With rich plantings of the silk floss tree and live oak as the centerpiece and the flowering Brazilian jasmine, it was clear that you're in for something very special. What was once a golf course and deteriorated park was restored in 1996 when a group of local residents formed a Miami Beach Garden Conservancy with a mission to restore the site into the incredible urban oasis it is today. Under the guidance of Raymond Jungles, South Florida landscape architect, this 3-acre site was transformed into a lush tropical paradise. Large large lawn meanders through the garden, taking you on a journey of exploration of different themed gardens. In the north corner of the garden is the Banyan lawn. There are works of art peppered throughout the garden, but for me, few works of art can compete with this impressive specimen of Banyan tree. Flanked on the left with a fishtail palm that looks more like a gigantic tree fern than a palm tree, and bananas on the right, this botanical work of art is straight out of the Jungle Book. Its aerial roots patiently making their way toward the ground below, anchoring themselves and making new trunks, growing this tree into a tropical giant. In its native Asia, it can create a mini forest with new trees sprouting with the roots come into contact with soil, all part of the same original parent plant. Another spectacular tree in the Banyan lawn area is the sea grape that was allowed to develop into a tree form. Staghorn ferns grace its multi-stem trunk. Porous limestone found in South Florida makes for great material for all sorts of fun landscaping projects. Here a bench with opening made for plants that grow right out of the seed itself. Miami waterways are renowned for their over-the-top yachts. Oh, and here comes one now. Early in its history, Miami Beach was full of avocado and mango groves, and in early 1900s, this canal was dug to transport these fruits to the port of Miami. And yes, avocado is technically a fruit. Today it's known as Collins Canal and is meandering along the water. Connective pathways offer easy access to Miami Beach's most popular cultural sites. Entry gates are flanked by Convention Center and Meridian Drive on the opposite end. Collins Canal Promenade runs some 350 feet, and this beautiful promenade is home to vegetation that attracts pollinators. As you make your way along the promenade to your side and through the ornate metal fence, you will see the edible garden. Its existence is in part owed to the local chapter of La Dame d'Escoffier, the international organization of women in the field of food, drink, and gastronomy. Not to deviate too far from horticulture, but we do have to thank Monsieur Auguste Escoffier, who gave us no less than 5 sauces that are most of the French and world cuisine is based on today. Dense plantings of ornamental grasses are a reminder that in Miami Beach, you're never too far from the water. Their gentle swaying adds an element of movement. Entering a loggia, a concept of a house or a room with open space looking to a garden, is typically used when referring to a classical garden. Here in a tropical climate, the small modern buildings housing the executive offices of the garden, the gallery, and the garden shop fit right in with the modern layout and planting style of the garden designed under the watchful eye of Raymond Jungles. There are recognizable shapes and patterns of the Modernist movement that affected architecture as well as the garden style of the tropics' angular forms and origami-like folds of the buildings that juxtapose with textural leaves of palms and other tropical foliages. Reflective pools add a whole other dimension to the experience in a garden, with reflections of the sky and clouds drifting in the sky. On the side of the three buildings, the garden continues to meander along perfectly cut walkways made out of the local limestone. It feels like a giant French ruler was used to carve out these shapes, narrowing and expanding, controlling your view and experience of the garden. The porous rock was used to create a surface for the ferns, epiphytes, and climbers to take hold and slowly transform the surface into a living green wall. This is the Bio-swale section of the garden. It's designed to absorb the storm water, and the black beach pebble walk allows the rainwater to quickly get absorbed. In this garden you will see the blue Leighton palm, royal palms, fan palms, and Singapore frangipani. In this small alley you will find a fun display of different cultivars of the snake plant. Another name for this plant is mother-in-law stone. I wonder where that name came from. One of the buildings is used as a gallery or conference room. Directly opposite is the Banyan Ballroom, and when it's not hosting parties and weddings, is home to the Miami Beach Garden Club. I was lucky to be invited to see the preparations for the Christmas wreath making class using air plants. I can't really get used to Christmas in the tropics. The Banyan Ballroom has a lovely shaded terrace, and I can just see the party spilling outside surrounded by the majestic trees and tropical foliage and fragrance. The stunning pink wild pear tree is a showstopper, and this is its off-season. Apparently the leaves, flowers, and bark of the South African native are a favorite with black rhinos. Who knew? Another spectacular tree is this sea grape. Normally allowed to grow into a dense and a bit unruly hedge, this specimen was trained as a tree. Its textured trunk and round leaves create a lovely contrast to the neighboring plants, and philodendrons. An old friend from up north seems to be adapting to the tropics just fine. Porcelain berry is one of the coolest color additions to the fall gardens up north, and even here in Miami. There are three incredible gumbo limbo trees planted around the plaza. Here it's underplanted with blushing philodendron. This is a great example of how effective having a tree in a patio can be in your garden. The most notable tree in this small garden is ylang-ylang tree. The flowers of this tree are used in perfume production. Chanel No. 5 is one of the most known fragrances that uses this plant. The fountain is surrounded by orchids and epiphytes, cleverly attached to the tree trunks. It kinda makes you wonder, why isn't every tree trunk in Florida covered with this kind of display? I also now know why the brown zip ties exist. The paving pattern done in local porous stone gives the walkway in this garden a unique Floridian feel. This random natural pattern complements the planting quite well. Switching to a different, smoother finish using the same stone in square shape is a very good tool in the design. Doing so cleverly distinguishes different sections of the garden, yet keeping the flow using the common material. Most landscape architects and designers have a signature plant, whether they're aware of it or not. When I visit gardens in Florida and see red mangroves as part of the plant scheme, I know that Raymond Jungles had his hand in the design. He single-handedly is reintroducing this vital Floridian native. This plant's ability to extract fresh water from salt water is a unique adaptation feature. But in this particular design, they simply make for a great plant feature and bring a detail of seemingly untouched piece of native flora to a very choreographed landscape installation. Water is a prominent design feature in this garden. Sound, reflective quality and motion all add to the experience of the garden space. The water flows over the oolite stone waterfall, and in spring and summer, the pond showcases tropical water lilies. The water feature is also a draw for wildlife, from dragonflies and butterflies to cardinals, herons, egrets, and many other migratory birds. Banyan Terrace is a meeting place for local garden club, and classes are held here on the terrace. Sound meditation, yoga, tai chi, and candlelit breath workshops are regularly held here. To the left of the path leading from the Banyan Terrace past the loggia is the edible garden, where you will walk past calabash tree, banana plants, pineapples, ginger, pomegranates, star fruit trees, macadamia nut tree, and many, many more. Seeds of these plants grown in the edible garden are for sale in a garden shop. It is December, and in the northeast the last of the butterflies are but a distant memory. To see them in the garden is such a treat. This section of the Botanical Garden is the white-scented garden. Here plants with silver leaves, underplanted with lower plants with variegated foliage, create a bright border of monochromatic display and texture. A palm tree with glaucous foliage brings the eye upwards, reminding you of what great height in very little space can easily be achieved in a tropical garden. And here's an obvious connoisseur of the variegated plants having a morning sunbath. I've stopped counting how many times I've been to Florida a long time ago, but still, till this day, seeing a dense planting of philodendron makes me jealous of how much architectural foliage effect can happen seemingly on its own. We up north have to work very hard to create scenes of this level of density and texture. rainbow eucalyptus, an Australian native, is not a very common tree in these parts, but as you can see, it's doing just fine and is happy with the conditions here. Looking at its bark, I can't imagine a better color palette for garden design. Tree ferns, the most exotic of all ferns, add beautiful contrast to the tropical beds. Their long arching branches gently float above ground covers and provide a mid-level foliage below tall palms. The contrast of their unique foliage and textural tree trunks of the palms makes for a very rich visual display. A small section of the garden is dedicated to flowering native plants that produce nectar for the resident butterflies and moths. Here you will find salvias and verbenas. These plants can easily be grown as annuals in more northern climates and will be an absolute magnet for the migratory butterflies. Directly across and facing the water feature are some of the garden's most interesting plants. I fell in love with the beautiful Portlandia grandiflora, common name tree lily. It reminds me of camellia with its glossy foliage and trumpet-like flowers that blossom in pure white.